How long has CIA been utilizing remote viewing?
The complete management of it that way caused there to be a huge mistake in the relationship between humans and these other civilizations. When we detonated the first atomic bomb, we kicked a hornet's nest because we actually disrupted their entire system. This is why they came in huge force in the 40s and 50s. And this is why every single atomic and nuclear weapon storage facility has been surveilled by these ET vehicles.
I would like to cover quantum of thought. Even though it's very unrelated to what we're talking about, it's a fascinating topic, and I want to dive into that.
Well, this is another whole show, and it's cool. So I always tell people, sort of the entry-level technological discussion on this is energy generation, propulsion, electrogravitics. The real amazing information has to do with what quantum physicists call entangled universe. You know, and actually Einstein called it the spooky effect, where the same particle could be in two places at once because of what's called non-locality, where basically we think in terms of a straight line, point A to B in the universe or in space here. In reality, there's an aspect of the cosmos that is entangled, where every point in space and time is intimately connected to every other, but not at the speed of light or what have you, but instantly. It's called entanglement. Now, the ultimate entangled field or non-local field is consciousness. The father of modern quantum mechanics, Erwin Schrödinger, particle wave theory, in 1908 said, the total number of minds in the universe is one. It's a singularity. So people talk about the singularity. This is the singularity. And it has to do with the consciousness field. So what extraterrestrial civilizations have for their communication systems, they're not going to pick up this thing, right, at the speed of light and go and communicate from, let's say you're from the Andromeda galaxies, 2.5 million light years from here.
It's too slow.
At the speed, this goes at the speed of light. Yeah. So at the speed of light, it'd take 2.5 million years for the signal to get there, and another 2.5 million years for the person to answer and say, yeah, I'm doing fine. How are you? It's 5 million years. So we know, and I knew this when I was 18 because I had a contact experience, that these civilizations have both innate remote viewing capabilities, but they have technologies that interface with that quantum field at the level of a quanta of thought. So not just random thought, but like directional, like if you're looking at the device and you think to it, it transmits to another node, another point. So now we've known this for decades in the CIA and other agencies, because when they started studying the devices, not just the propulsion systems and the energy, but how are these guys communicating? They found these devices. And to me, this is some of the most interesting research that no one ever talks about. But if you look at Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is our documentary about contacting and using this technique, the foundation of it is this. It's the science of consciousness and the science of the quanta of thought interfacing not only with each other, but dropping out of linear space-time. And so we call this trans-dimensional physics, physics that cross dimensions. And one of the dimensions is the so-called thought realm. And it's fascinating. And so now take that knowledge that maybe some mystics in India and the Vedas and meditation, I'll admit that before I was a medical doctor, I was a meditation teacher and studied all this. So I kind of, after I had the contact experience, I went, what the heck? How did this happen? So I became a student of the ancient Vedas and Sanskrit and then meditation before I went into medical school. But interesting career track, huh? But unconventional. But what I learned was that this is how these civilizations are able to communicate in real time across 1 million light years of space.
Have you heard of string theory?
Yes.
Now, from what I've heard, the Chinese are claiming that they can communicate with their satellites through string theory. Do you?
It could be. I mean, I know that our intelligence community at the upper end of it, Deep Black, have systems that are interfacing with this technology.
We have this too?
Oh, God, yeah, way back. That got perfected between 1956 and 1965.
Can you describe string theory?
Well, I'll let a physicist describe string theory, and some people don't think it's quite accurate. I think a more accurate view of it is what I'm calling non-locality. Okay. In other words, where in what's called entanglement, the interconnectivity. And this is why Ben Rich, who is the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, said, and I have 3 people who were there when he said it at a lecture, UCLA, School of Engineering. And he said, this is in, I believe, 1995. He was at the end of his career. And he had taken Kelly Johnson's place, who was founded the Skunk Works, the Lockheed Skunk Works, a U-2 spy plane, all that. And he said, someone asked, how would these extraterrestrial civilizations communicate? And he said, every point in space and time is connected to every other point in space and time in real time, instantly. And that's how they're doing it. And it's through consciousness, through mind. And of course, everybody there was like, these are nuclear engineers and whatnot. And they're going, what, WTF? But, that's true. So one of the things, I get ridiculed the most for the work I'm doing with contact and consciousness. What people don't realize, that is the deepest secret that they have on this. Because if people understand that, they can bypass any intelligence system and remote view and see, or they can contact these civilizations. Now you have to be trained, but so I train people with we have an app. It's called CE5 Contact app. And the CE5 Contact app, there's millions of people using it now. And it's a whole training program on remote viewing, meditation, making how to do this. But the foundation of it is what you're asking about, and that's the technological interface that I don't have. We have classified projects that have some of this, but these other civilizations have. I remember talking to a McDonnell Douglas, became part of Boeing. One of their chief aerospace engineers is on my team, Dr. Woods, very elderly now, but he was assigned by old man McDonnell Douglas, to look into this issue in the 60s. And he found cases where there were people who had contact with these extraterrestrial vehicles and the personnel, the beings. They're called EBINs, extraterrestrial biological entities. So the EBIN was there, and it had this little kind of black rectangular box. And it was used, so they didn't have to speak verbally like we are. It was kind of telepathic, but augmented with this technology. And it went back and forth that way. Now, the human was just receiving it, but very clear. And then this EBIN was receiving it probably innately, but assisted. So I call this consciousness-assisted technology, CAT. And then the reverse, technology-assisted consciousness, where the technology can help project your remote viewing capability. It goes both ways.
Really?
So so let's say the guidance system on these interstellar vehicles, they can stand at a console and touch it or think to it and then navigate it. That's how it's done.
Wow.
We know how that's done.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. This is the really cool. To me, this other stuff is like the introductory, but the stuff that really excites me is this, And of course, and Elon Musk has Neuralink, where he's trying to create a interface between the mind and machine, but he's doing it with wires and things in the brain and what have you. No, we're not talking about that, because that's at the speed of light.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the speed of thought. And that you're now in another universe. Now you've gone through the looking glass with this. Now, this question you asked is, to me, it's the really amazing science.
I'm fascinated.
You know what they call this at the CIA, this kind of stuff? And at my uncle's old company, they call it WSFM. Anybody out there listening heard this? Weird science and frickin' magic. I'm using the F word. And at my uncle's company, they would call it PFM, just pure effing magic. But it's real. It's science, but it's really amazing stuff.
How much do you know about the Monroe Institute and their
a lot.
studies with the CIA?
Lots.
Can we talk
and Army
a little bit about
intelligence.
how long have they been? I didn't realize Army intelligence was using.
Oh, yeah. General Stubblebine took his people through there.
Managing a household, especially with kids, is no small feat. I totally get it, and that's why I've made sure my family has a plan in place if something unexpected ever happens. But what about you? Do you have a plan to help protect your family's financial future? Don't worry. Fabric by Gerber Life can help. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Made for busy parents like you, all online, on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. Fabric has flexible, high-quality policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Fabric also has free digital wills, tools to invest in your kids' future, and more, all right from your phone. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/srclips. That's meetfabric.com/srclips. meetfabric.com/srclips. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. How long has CIA been how long has CIA been utilizing remote viewing and working with the Monroe Institute?
I believe that when the Monroe Institute was later, I think they started those projects in the 60s and 70s. Monroe Institute was not that integral. They had a technique, hemisync, that they found was useful for some people. And so a lot of people went through there. It's 20 minutes from my country house out near in Virginia, in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Really?
Is where they're located. Mm-hmm. So they did a lot of work with that, but it was sort of as a ancillary, not as a principal operation. Yeah. Now, Ingo Swann, who is one of the most famous remote viewers, is a friend of mine, and before he passed away, and he regretted what he had done with that. He wished he had done what I'm doing, which was something positive instead of doing what he was doing with the agency. But he was the most accurate. He was incredibly accurate. Very interesting guy. I went up to his place in the East Village in New York, and he was this very flamboyant gay guy with an artist, and he was like this brilliant. He was all over the place. But we had just a great time, and he shared with me a lot of experiences he had with CIA operations, remote viewing, very accurate targeting of things in the Soviet Union and elsewhere out in space. He imaged objects out near Saturn that nobody knew were there, that they proved later were there. Really amazing.
Is this documented, some of the stuff?
He has a couple books out that may have mentioned some of it. A lot of times these folks will share things with me personally that I don't know if it's in the book. I'd have to look it up and see. He had one book called Penetration that you can get that deals with a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah, Ingo Swann. But
would you consider what you're doing with CE5 remote viewing?
Oh, sure. It's a more advanced version for the purpose. So CE5 Contact in the app, you'll see the purpose of it is for humans to be able to liaison with these civilizations and bypass the government who made a mess of this. So one of the things that we came to realize is that the management of this, and it's understandable how it tracked into military and intelligence operations because it's technological, and we wanted to know how these things work. But the complete management of it that way caused there to be a huge mistake in the relationship between humans and these other civilizations. And here I want to put a button on this. When we detonated the first atomic bomb and the subsequent ones, when those go off, everybody knows what an electromagnetic pulse is. What they don't know is that there's an attending so-called scalar or longitudinal wave that is faster than the speed of light that disrupts the fabric and communication and propulsion guidance systems of extraterrestrial vehicles. And this is why they came in huge force in the 40s and 50s. And this is why every single atomic and nuclear weapon storage facility, processing plant, and base and ship has been surveilled by these ET vehicles, because when those things are used, it's like tearing the fabric of space-time. Now, there are a few, Jacques Vallée knows this, there are a few physicists who know this. And so this U-2 spy plane pilot that I have brought to DC, this was his big concern, that the military has completely misunderstood what the concern from these civilizations are, and they've looked at it purely as a threat, when in reality, we're the threat. So I have an interview with Gordon Crichton, who was a MI6 guy, British, and he's dead now. He says, yes, when we did that, we kicked a hornet's nest because we actually disrupted their entire system. And remember, entanglement. We think straight line speed of light, well, EMP, electromagnetic pulses, are going to reach Alpha Centauri or some star system. But these so-called longitudinal or scalar waves it's a point that goes out in a straight line without the wave function. Those are multiples the speed of light, and they're highly disruptive. And so this is something that the senators and the president don't know. So there's a whole scientific brief that has to be done on how do we get to this place. And because it's been mismanaged, this creates an existential threat for the whole planet, that we have people who don't understand it, who should, and the people who do understand it are weaponizing those systems. And by the way, that's how we have downed dozens and dozens of extraterrestrial vehicles. We're using these advanced energy weapons, but not the ones at the speed of light, the ones that are longitudinal or scalar. And those are ground-based, sea-based, space-based. Damn. We have NRO satellites with these things on them. And we can detect an extraterrestrial vehicle when it's dropping down out of transdimensional. So in other words, when it's not 3D, but it's moved in through these other dimensions, and it's about to quote-unquote materialize. There's a neutrino light scatter that happens. And the sats we have up there, the eyes in the sky, the really advanced ones, have neutrino light detectors on them that pick that up. That's triangulated, and then we hit them, or try to. Dangerous. I mean, this is a very dangerous game going on. The president doesn't know this. I know it. I have people who have run the systems on my team.
Wow.
And we're talking, this foolishness is literally a threat to the entire planet, which is why, and I want to just remind people of this. This is in the Unacknowledged book. And it's a letter from the first CIA director to the New York Times in 1961, after Eisenhower left office. And his name was Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, Hillenkoeter. And he said, part of the letter said, the issue is ridiculed when in high places it's taken very seriously. But he said, and this is the key point, the secrecy surrounding UFOs is, and I'm quoting, a threat to the national security. He had seen how badly this had gone. Now, this is 61. This is now 62 years ago.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.